Why do so many autistic individuals struggle with emotional regulation and mental health? What if the root cause wasn't to do with their natural way of being, but rather the impact of trauma? Trauma doesn't just disrupt the brain's emotional balance, it interrupts the very process of learning emotional regulation, particularly during critical stages of development. In this video, I'll explain how trauma blocks the socialization process, why socialization is essential for learning emotional regulation, and how the accumulation of traumatic triggers leads to anxiety, depression, and a cycle that feels impossible to escape from. Emotional regulation isn't something we're born with. It's a skill we develop starting in early childhood through interacting with others. During the developmental period, socialization plays a vital role in teaching us how to recognize, process, and express emotions. Children learn how to regulate their emotions through observing caregivers, engaging in social interaction, and receiving support in managing overwhelming feelings. It's through these interactions that a child learns how to identify and respond to their emotions in healthy ways, creating the foundation for mental well-being. However, when trauma occurs during this critical time, it disrupts this natural learning process. Instead of feeling safe and supported, the child's brain shifts into survival mode, prioritizing defense over connection and emotional growth. In regards to autism, early trauma often compounds this disruption by blocking access to the socialization process. Socialization is essential for learning emotional regulation. It's through these interactions that we develop awareness of our own emotions and empathy for the emotions of others. When trauma or isolation excludes a person from this process, then the opportunity to learn these skills naturally is lost. This creates significant gaps in emotional understanding and regulation, leaving the individual without the tools needed to navigate emotional challenges. As a result, they can face a greater risk of emotional dysregulation and mental health struggles, such as chronic anxiety and depression. Trauma also dysregulates the autonomous nervous system, which is in charge of managing emotional responses. Instead of maintaining a balanced state, the nervous system gets stuck in fight or flight mode, making feelings like anxiety, stress, or anger feel even more intense and unmanageable. Each traumatic event adds to this burden by creating a memory linked to its own unique triggers. Over time, as these triggers accumulate, the brain begins to unconsciously perceive the world as increasingly dangerous. This growing web of triggers creates a constant state of anxiety where the individual feels surrounded by potential threats, even in environments that might otherwise feel safe. This chronic anxiety often leads to depression. As the number of triggers accumulate, the individual can feel trapped and unable to escape the emotional pain tied to their memories. This sense of inescapability can lead to a state of learned helplessness, where they stop trying to regulate their emotions or improve their situation and sink into feelings of hopelessness and despair. Depression in this context isn't just about sadness, it's a survival mechanism, a way for the brain to conserve energy when it believes that there's no way out of the emotional and mental despair. At the heart of these struggles is the emotional pain stored in traumatic memories. Each memory contains unresolved emotion like fear, sadness, and anger that can be reactivated whenever a linked trigger is encountered. For example, for someone who has been repeatedly dismissed or misunderstood, situations where they feel unheard can bring back the full impact of the emotional pain linked to those memories. This reactivation can create the illusion that the current situation is causing the distress, when in reality it is the cumulative impact of past experiences resurfacing. The good news is that this cycle can be broken. By addressing the negative emotions stored in traumatic memories, we can weaken the connection between triggers and emotional distress. Healing these stored emotions allows the brain to release its constant state of vigilance, calming the nervous system and reducing the intensity of emotional responses. Feelings like anxiety, stress, and anger become manageable because they're no longer being amplified by unresolved trauma. This creates a sense of emotional stability and resilience where the individual is able to respond to challenges more effectively. Reconnecting with the socialization process, even later in life, also helps to fill the gaps caused by earlier disruptions. As the brain begins to feel safe again, it becomes possible to learn and practice the emotional regulation skills that were missed during development. These include recognizing, processing, and expressing emotions effectively, as well as building a greater sense of empathy and connection with others. These newly learned skills foster more fulfilling relationships and a greater sense of emotional well-being. Addressing these root causes also begins to lift the weight of depression. As individuals reclaim a sense of agency and start to eliminate their emotional triggers, the feelings of helplessness and despair begin to fade. Healing fosters a greater sense of self-worth and safety, creating a solid foundation for emotional regulation and improved mental health. Each step forward creates room for confidence, connection, and hope, empowering individuals to reclaim their emotional lives. Autistic individuals often experience heightened anxiety and mental health struggles due to the accumulation of traumas and the challenges of being excluded from the socialization process. However, these struggles aren't permanent. With the right support, healing, and reconnection, it's possible to break free from the cycle of emotional dysregulation and build a life of greater balance and well-being. So if you haven't done so already, subscribe to this channel to learn more about autism, trauma, and the path to healing. And while you're at it, give that notification bell a good little tickle so that you don't miss out on any of the videos in this series, because believe me, once you understand that trauma is at the root of all of the challenges you face on the spectrum, you will have the power to change your life completely. Because even though autism is considered to be incurable, trauma is highly treatable. Together we can transform challenges into opportunities for growth. So if this video has sparked your interest and you want to learn more about how trauma impacts autism, then I'll put a link in the description below to one of my blog posts, Autism versus Trauma, Rethinking the Connection Through the Ultimate Divergence Theory of Autism. It breaks it all down and explains things in a way that makes it easy to understand. Now I've also put a link in the description to my free PDF, The Top 3 Myths About Autism and the Path to Spiritual Wellness for Autistic Adults, where you can begin your journey to healing trauma and reclaiming your emotional life. And if you want to learn even more about how trauma impacts autism, then this video up here will see you right